On today's episode of the Lucid Lens show, Congressman Eric Burleson says that Congress is not deterred by the recent AARO report. Nobody is. And that him and other members have asked Speaker Mike Johnson for a UAP select committee. We'll take a look at that. Another Congressman, Tim Burchett of Tennessee, also straight up says this AARO report is false and that the Pentagon is lying. Francisco Guillermo, might have got the pronunciation wrong, a member of the European Parliament from Portugal, shares his thoughts on the floor of the European Parliament regarding AARO's findings and how they conflict with what other parts of the U.S. government are saying. Famed lawyer Daniel Sheehan of the Pentagon Papers and Iran-Contra, among other massive civil suits uncovering corruption in the U.S. government, appears on investigative journalist Ross Coulthart's news show Reality Check on News Nation, and he doesn't mince words and straight up declares the former AARO boss is lying in this recent report. Seems to be a through line in today's stories. We'll get into this and a whole lot more on today's show.
There's footage and records of objects in the skies that we don't know exactly what they are.
Intelligence representative at a high level from the US government is saying publicly, we are not alone.
Greetings, you marvelous citizens of planet Earth, and welcome to the Lucid Lens show. I'm just a normal guy, shining a light on some extraordinary things that nobody seems to be talking about, or at least not enough people are talking about it. Of course, I'm talking about UAPs, or if you're not familiar with the term UAPs, it's UFOs, the phenomena. Look, in case you're still catching up, UFOs are real. The government admitted so back in 2021 in a congressionally mandated report, which came to the conclusion that the craft our Navy pilots are routinely seeing are not our black budget tech. They're not our allies or our adversaries. They don't know what they are. That much they've admitted. Although they're conflicting, depending on the day of the week, who you're talking to in the Pentagon. They seem to be at odds with one another. Anyway, I got into this topic thanks to my wonderful wife, who last year said that, hey, Congress is having a hearing on UFOs. Did you know about that? I was like, what? A hearing on UFOs? Really? Of course, you know, being a kid of the 90s and the X-Files, I had to tune in, and it kind of blew my mind. If you guys have not seen that hearing, please go look it up. It's on all the major networks. Check it out. It's kind of earth-shattering. And that's what got me down this rabbit hole. I've read books. I've read all the documents, the crazy documentaries. What the fuck, man? Why can't I think of these words? I'm just going to leave that in. I'm not going to edit it out. Today, we've got some very interesting topics. First up, I want to look at the European Parliament because a lot of folks, and rightfully so, because, and I'm talking about folks in the U.S., they think this is only something that the U.S. talks about. It's not going on in the rest of the world. Well, if you go look on AARO's site, that's the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office. That's the current UFO office in the Pentagon. There's been a million of them at this point. They've got a map up with, trends and sightings and the different morphologies or shapes that people are reporting seeing. And these sightings are all over the world. It's not a U.S. only thing. So I don't know why people still think that. Let's take a look at this because it's kind of mind-blowing.
Thank you, Chair. Recently, the Pentagon and its currently unidentified anomalous phenomena investigative program named AARO published a report considering that AARO has not discovered any empirical evidence that any sighting of UAP represented off-world technology or the existence of a classified program that had not been properly reported to Congress. However, Louis Elizondo, the former director of the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, ATIP, replied that this public report is intentionally dishonest, inaccurate, and dangerously misleading. The same conclusion can be reached when analyzing the recent statements of U.S. top officials in the Army, which mentioned in the congressional hearing that the government has secret programs and that some UAPs are not explained by current human technology. For me and many others, one thing seems rational and obvious. Someone is hiding something, and it's not those who are seeking the answers.
Someone is hiding something, and that seems to be the trend with this. So the rest of the world has taken notice. They're following along with this. I mean, these are discussions that are happening in the halls of Congress, in the European Parliament. I know Japan, I believe, is trying to get a study going. Canada has, I think, something called Sky Canada. They have a report that's going to be coming out this year. The U.S. isn't the only country, and South America, I mean, they got a lot going on down there. Brazil, Peru, Mexico. So not just happened in the U.S. I mean, that's crazy that we have these discussions happening in Congresses around the world right now. All right. Topic number 2 I want to touch on today is Danny Sheehan's interview with Ross Coulthart on that new, what's that new show they got? Let's take a look at this real quick. Reality check on News Nation. So,
giving the world the truth about UFOs, UAPs, unidentified anomalous phenomenon. So let's bring in News Nation special correspondent Ross Coulthart to the show. Ross, congrats on the new podcast.
G'day, Marky. Good morning to you and your viewers.
Yes, good day to you. Always good to have you on the show. It's almost perfect timing, right? I mean, the launch of your new show, considering AARO just released its findings that it found no evidence the American government has non-human technology or has a retrieval or reverse engineering program. What can viewers and listeners expect?
Well, we're not going to take what the Pentagon says on its face, Marky. We're going to do some digging because the audience, that's the viewers out there, are telling us that's what they want. Ever since I did the David Grush interview last year, we've been deluged with tips, information, witnesses, people coming forward, wanting us to dig deeper and investigate. And that's what we're going to do.
Mm-hmm. I want to play a clip of your debut podcast where Pentagon Papers attorney Daniel Sheehan rebunks AARO's report on not finding direct evidence of a crash retrieval program. Let's all take a listen and I'll get your take on the other side.
Did Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick lie when he made the assertion that there was no direct first-hand witness evidence provided to AARO of a crash retrieval?
I provided him under oath the exact same information that I've given to you. And the question is whether he was taking some weird position that, well, that was a photograph and it wasn't on site, but I didn't lay my hands on the craft. And I could tell from the way the report was written, it was kind of wiggle language of trying to pretend that somehow they had no direct evidence. But that, from a court of law, as a 50-year practicing attorney from Harvard Law School, I can tell you that is direct admissible firsthand testimony about the fact that there is direct visual photographic evidence of a crash retrieval program directly being undertaken by government officials. And he knows that it existed.
All right. That's crazy. And what Daniel Sheehan's referring to here is the fact that, this was back in, I think, 77. Jimmy Carter was elected president, and one of his first initiatives was to get to the bottom of what's going on with UFOs because he saw one. I believe while he was a senator in Georgia, congressman. I'm terrible about this stuff, but he had seen a UFO and he was curious. He wanted to know what was going on. So first thing he did was he went and said, "Hey, show me what's going on with the UFOs." I think he asked George Bush Sr., who was head of the CIA at the time, and he basically flat out refused to give him any information. And because of the position that Daniel Sheehan was in at the Jesuit order, he was asked to go. I believe he was sent to might have been the Library of Congress, a new wing that had opened up, and basically they had the classified parts of Project Blue Book brought there, and he went in and saw pictures of UFOs. And anyway, the whole point is he gave this testimony to Sean Kirkpatrick of AARO, who basically just ignored this firsthand witness testimony without even following it up, regardless of whether you think that you believe him or not. That should have been followed up upon. And this report just, they didn't go into any, it's like they didn't follow up with any of the witness testimony. Yet they rely on witness testimony when it goes the other way. So the whole thing is just ridiculous. And Daniel Sheehan said he'll gladly testify in front of Congress and share what he knows, and they'll look into it. All right. Ross Coulthart's been busy. So he was in Washington the last couple of weeks talking with congressmen, staffers, senators, and on his other podcast, Need to Know, drop some other truth bombs. I think this is actually on the News Nation podcast. Let's listen to what he has to say here.
Is that there has been an egregious failure that has gone on now for decades inside the national security establishment, which has concealed the existence of a legacy retrieval and reverse engineering program. Now, I know that sounds utterly absurd, and there will be the debunkers and the trolls who suggest that this is all a delusion. But as you'll hear today from a direct first-hand witness to the existence of that retrieval program, there is direct evidence, and it's just the beginning. There's going to be a long, slow rollout of witnesses and evidence put before the Congress. Now, it's not that Congress is dragging the chain, by the way. I'm very happy to tell you that I was in Washington, D.C. just a couple of weeks ago. I was strolling the halls of Congress and talking to defense and intelligence insiders, people who care about you, the public, getting the truth about what's really going on. And I was stopped on occasion by congressional representatives and indeed 2 senators, none of whom are actually prominent in the coverage, the news coverage that's been reported to date about the UAP issue. They were thrilled to see me. They knew me from the Grush interview, and they wanted me to know they care about this issue. They wanted me to know that there is a bipartisan support to get to the truth of the issue of this UAP mystery, not least because they recognise that it's a threat to the constitutional freedoms, the democratic ideas that I love about America.
All right. So he's there talking to folks, and there are people behind the scenes that haven't come forward yet in the Senate and the Congress that are taking this seriously. I think more and more are getting briefed and woken up to the fact that this is actually going on. And they're angry because they should have oversight. They should have insight into the funds that are being spent, the billions of dollars that are being spent. It's kind of ridiculous, but it's reassuring to know that behind, closed doors, more and more are, actually following this, and they're pretty angry about it. So I know we all want to know, like, who are they? Why aren't they coming out? Why aren't they all 500 of them coming out and, making this public? But I think they got to be careful because they work for their constituents. They work for us, the people. And if not everybody is fully on board and supporting this yet, they don't want to get, voted out of office or lose the support because not everybody is up to speed, and they're, not everybody is aware of what's going on. This is partly why I'm even doing this, is to raise awareness, wake up, come on, pay attention. This is going on right now. But I think more and more are starting to come forward. I mean, a lot of big names have come forward. And we're talking we've got, Schumer, Rounds, the some of the most powerful people in the Senate. We've got a nice UAP caucus going in the House of Reps. We've got Marco Rubio, the Gang of Eight. They pretty much know what's going on. A lot of the people that actually matter, and this is a bipartisan effort right now. It doesn't matter what party you're from. I don't get into that party nonsense. I have issues with all the parties. I mean, I like to party, but not these parties. So let's take one more look at, I think it's the Need to Know podcast, where he talks again about what's going on.
The thing I came away with, and I'm glad some of it's starting to come out now. I was in Congress meeting and greeting very senior political people, staffers, and also meeting up with people in Washington who know what's really going on. And I'm really pleased to see that my friend and colleague Joe Khalil from News Nation has broken the story this morning that the members, I think, of the House Oversight Committee are pushing for, notably Representative Burleson, they're pushing for a new select committee into UAPs. And what I can tell you is there was a moment I was standing in the Senate wing of Congress, just minding my own business, actually checking my phone. And these two very senior politicians came up to me and they said, "Oh, you're the guy that did the Grush interview." And I said, "Yes." And then one of them said, "Oh, yeah, and you do that Need to Know podcast?" And I went, "Yes, that's me, sir." And then I realized who I was talking to. And these were two very senior senators, neither of whom are prominent at all publicly in the commentary on the issue. But what they took their time to say to me was how they know they can smell bullshit when they see it. And they were making the point to me that Congress is not letting this issue go. And I can't say a great deal about what I know is happening, but there is a very strong bipartisan push on the Congress that it's time. That basically they're not buying that nonsense AARO, All Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, historical review report, which essentially was a whitewash,
All right. So basically the same thing. You know, again, Congress is not buying this report. And it's like, you would have thought it would be obvious that the report in the state that they put it out in would get ripped to shreds like almost immediately, like it did. Like, yeah, you had this very select group that the Pentagon invited to, you know, this round table, I think the day before the report came out, and they all put their stories out, the headlines, "Oh, nothing to see here," very, very selective vernacular. It was, you know, all extraterrestrials and aliens, and but meanwhile, the Congress, everyone that's privy and up to speed with everything, it's non-human intelligence, because they don't know the origin. They don't know what, you know, they don't want to put it into a box because nobody knows, right? And it just seems very deliberate and almost intentionally bad. Like it's like a high schooler wrote this thing. It's terrible. We'll dig into some of the glaring issues with it in a second, but yeah, Congress isn't buying it. No one is buying it, really. Yeah. So, all right, let's move on. All right, now for our main topic today, and that is, what is Congress's actual reaction? What are their reactions to AARO's report? They're not buying it. We've all heard that. Nobody's buying it. But what are the next steps? And one major push right now is to actually get a select committee on UAPs. They're gaining momentum right now. In fact, they're not backing down from this. And they're pushing the Speaker of the House for a select committee. And for those not familiar with the term, a select committee is a temporary committee in Congress that is put together when a matter doesn't typically fall under the jurisdiction of another committee. And in this case, it's UAP, right? So they're asking for a fully staffed body to investigate, call hearings, and this is going to create a dedicated group to really focus on the issue. I'm not sure if you knew this, but Congress people, it's not just them doing the work. They have staff, they have aides, they have people who track down witnesses, who do research, who organize meetings. They do a lot of this work for them, and they are actually cleared. They have typically have the same clearance level as the Congress people that they serve. And that's how a lot of this stuff gets done behind the scenes. Just one person can't do it all. They've got a staff to take care of all the dozens or hundreds of issues that Congress people deal with. So having a select committee is going to get the staff and the funding, the budget, to actually tackle this issue at a much quicker pace than if it was just another one of the dozens of things that they're having to deal with every day. All right, let's take a look at Representative Burleson's clip on News Nation.
Find the truth about unidentified anomalous phenomena, UAPs, otherwise sort of kind of what we've all called UFOs for years. Now, there is one congressman who says enough isn't being done. The Republican from Missouri, Eric Burleson, is leading a charge. He is asking for Congress to do something about it, saying, quote, "We believe that establishing a new select subcommittee would provide a significant opportunity for Congress to provide answers that are long overdue." Joining us now is the congressman from Missouri, Congressman Burleson. Thanks for being with us here on the Hill. What do you want here?
Great to be here.
Is this a new committee? And how receptive is the House Speaker Mike Johnson to this?
Yeah, we've reached out to Mike Johnson. I think that this is the next step, is to send a formal letter. Look, I'm lucky to have other colleagues that are part of the UAP caucus, that we're all taking this matter very seriously. We took the whistleblower, David Grush, and his allegations very seriously. I think we took the testimony of pilots who have had these near-miss encounters and have seen these objects. We've taken their concerns very seriously, and I think that we owe it to the American people to shed light on the expenditures that are, all the money that's being used to investigate these matters. This needs to be done in a transparent way, and we're trying to do this in a very thoughtful way, which is why I think that we need the resources. We need to have a select committee so that we can have the staff in place who are dedicated to this cause.
Is the speaker on your side?
I don't know yet. I have a feeling I'll look forward to hearing from him, but okay. I know that we've got Chairman Comer on our side. We've got Tim Burchett and other members of the UAP caucus, and
Democrats
so hopefully
and
we'll
Republicans.
get a response from the speaker.
Yep.
Yes.
Here was the report, Congressman.
Representative Moskowitz.
Yep, exactly. Here was the report from the Pentagon last week, basically pushing back on David Grush's testimony and the idea that there's a secret crash retrieval program. Quote, AARO, which is the government agency overseeing this, assesses that all of the named and described alleged hidden UAP reverse engineering programs provided by interviewees either do not exist, are misidentified authentic national security programs that are not related to extraterrestrial technology exploitation, or resolve to a de-established program. Do you trust, Congressman, the Pentagon on this when that is their finding, or do you think there is more there to look into?
I don't, because they weren't transparent to us in a SCIF setting, so they could have brought forward evidence. They could have explained what these special access programs actually do, but they are not willing to do that with Congress. So to me, it's time that they open the kimono, that they show us exactly what's happening, because they should, if they're doing something that's good for the American people, if they're being responsible with taxpayer dollars, they should have nothing to hide.
All right. Again, this is great. They're trying to get the select committee. They've got the support of the chairman, Comer. And it'll be very telling if the speaker doesn't allow them to form this select committee, because why wouldn't they want to be able to do their jobs more efficiently? There's obviously something there. They're getting information. The Senate is more informed than the House is, so they're not stupid. They have to be looking at that. Okay, well, the Senate already passed 4 pieces of legislation over the last few years. Like, there's absolutely something to this. And then based on the testimony at the hearing last year, they know they have to keep digging. So it'll be interesting if the speaker doesn't allow them to go forward with this. I feel like he has to, otherwise he just kind of shows his hand. But yeah, and the angle that they're taking is following the misappropriation of funds and where all the money's going, and the fact that the Pentagon hasn't passed an audit ever. I think it's 6 audits in a row they failed. I want to say they started first getting auditing back in like 95 or so, but maybe did they not get audited every year? I don't know. I feel like I need to look into that a little bit more and see what the real story is. But yeah, everyone knows that the Pentagon is billions, not trillions of dollars in assets they can't find. I mean, there's something there, and I'm glad that that's the angle, because people can all agree that our taxpayer money is going to something, and people economy's not doing so great, right? So I like the angle that they're taking to get to it. Whatever angle, all angles, we need to attack this from all sides. So we'll see what happens with that. All right. Let's now go over to an article by Christopher Sharp at the Liberation Times, who, if you're not already following, please do. He's done a remarkable job covering this topic. He's got a breakdown of the AARO report, pointing out all the various errors, omissions, and really highlights how shallow and surface level their thorough historical investigation was. It's really quite sad, and the mistakes that they made in it. I mean, they didn't even get Senator Harry Reid's state correct. I think they put New Mexico instead of Nevada. I mean, it's pretty sad. Anyway, so let's take a look real quick. So in this article, he highlights the letter the House representative sent to Mike Johnson. I'm actually going to do a double plug here, because the letter was first obtained by journalist Matt Laszlo of Ask a Poll. And go to askapoll.com. Support Matt. He's someone who's actually boots on the ground. He's a journalist. He's also, I believe, a professor at, I can't remember which college he's at, but he's on the boots on the ground in Washington. He's doing all the grunt work, following up with Congress, asking the hard questions that we all want to know the answers to. I mean, he's getting great clips like every week. He's literally like waiting outside of meetings and chambers and outside of skiffs, waiting for these folks to come out, and he's asking questions. I think he got all 100 senators last year. He got their takes on the whistleblower David Grush. Go support him. He's doing great work. But as you can see in this letter to the Speaker, Congress does not trust the AARO report, and they declare, in light of recent whistleblower testimony and new evidence pertaining to the existence of unidentified anomalous phenomenon, UAP, we request that the U.S. House of Representatives establish a select subcommittee under the House Committee on Oversight and Accountability to investigate the federal government's response to UAP. Congress is not buying it. Congress isn't buying it. And with this select committee they're requesting, they'll have subpoena powers, which grants them the ability to legally bring in hostile witnesses allegedly associated with these UAP programs who would otherwise refuse to testify. And the subcommittee would also be fully staffed, as I said before, but they would be granted access to all material information, classified and unclassified, from the federal government about UAP, regardless of any special or restricted access protections. And that's kind of been at the heart of this, is those special access programs that Congress has not had oversight over. So 2 more things I want to point out in the article. Another source, 2 more things I want to point out in the article. Another source from Department of Defense, affiliated source, told Liberation Times, clearly there are members of Congress who are aware of the effort by the Pentagon to once again sweep this topic under the rug, like they did with Project Blue Book and other historical reviews decades before. Only this time, Congress knows the truth. One must always question an organization that, when that organization does not provide the truth to those it is beholden. In the end, you can't have liberty without freedom, and you can't have freedom without truth. I mean, that's really at the center of all of this, right? Truth will set you free. I mean, really, it just comes down to we've got a rogue nation within our government that's spending our money, and nobody knows what they're spending it on. I mean, we presume to know, we've got a pretty good idea what they're spending it on with these reverse engineering programs that have been alleged for decades now. David Grush isn't the first one to come out and say it. He's certainly the most credible and most recent. And rumors are there's 40 some odd whistleblowers that have already given testimony to the Senate Intel Committee and Armed Services Committee. I believe the Gang of 8, they all know what's up. And the House of Reps, they're kind of, they're the rowdy kids in the room. They're catching up. They want a piece of this too. And I say, great, attack it from both angles. So it's going to be interesting with the push from both sides of Congress now. What's going to happen next? I wonder who's going to have the next hearing. The House has already said they're going to have field hearings. They're clear to have those whenever they want. I believe Tim Burchett a week or 2 ago said that the Speaker said, go ahead and have another, public hearing, in Washington. So hopefully one of those happens pretty soon. I feel like Anna Paulina Luna mentioned that we should be hearing about field hearings pretty soon. So it's got to be, within the next couple of weeks, we'll hear something. So last thing I wanted to point out, there is actually a new member of the UAP caucus. I believe his name was right here, Troy Nels from Texas. So their numbers are growing. They are gaining support. And these are just the folks that are being public with their support. Ross Coulthart said when he's talking to folks in Washington, they're secretly all invested in this. This is a massive issue. Can you imagine, all the reasons that we've been in, our debt is, I don't even know what our national debt is. It's like 30 trillion or something stupid. I mean, don't quote me on that, but I mean, it's ridiculous. And we're just leaking money through the Pentagon and our $1 trillion military budget every year. that could be put to better use. I think we could all agree upon that. But if they're hiding technology that could have helped us even more, I mean, that's a whole nother can of worms. But look, let them follow the money. Let's see where this leads. They've clearly got plenty of leads to follow. So stay tuned. I think I think this year is going to be pretty spicy. All right. So that does it for today's stories. I just kind of want to give you my opinion on the state of things. Why was the AARO report so obviously bad? I mean, clearly they had to know that it was going to come out and just get ripped to shreds within hours of releasing it. I mean, the Pentagon had a very select few outlets invited to this roundtable they had with the, I can't remember the name of the current acting director after Kirkpatrick left. It'll come to me. Maybe I'll flash the name up in post. But yeah, they had to know this was going to get torn to shreds, and they're being very cagey and secretive, and it's obvious they're trying to hide something. If they had nothing to hide, be open, invite everybody. No. In this report with the glaring errors and they got spelling errors, the sources that they used. I think I'm pretty sure they had a Wikipedia source. They had like some sort of fandom source. Like, this isn't a video game report you're writing here. Come on. This is our Congress. This is our government, supposed to be the brightest and this is what we're getting for our money. I don't know what kind of budget AARO has, and I don't think they were fully funded until just the end of last year in 2023. So the fact that we're expecting to do this grand historical report, when if you've done any research on your own, you know how deep this subject goes, and with their limited staff and the very surface level, they didn't even look at the Nimitz incident with David Fravor. And that's probably one of the most credible cases in recent history with, 5 eyewitnesses, right? 5 very well-trained Navy pilots, radar data, flare footage, forward-looking infrared, that's their gun camera. And that wasn't even mentioned in the report. I think they just kind of retreaded the Roswell story. So where am I going with this? Why would they release something which was just going to get destroyed immediately by anyone that read past the headline? I think it was intentional. I think that what we're witnessing right now is theater. I think this is all a very well crafted, a very meticulous timeline that's been laid out to get more and more people paying attention to what's going on. Every time, Congress that's investigating makes another revelation, or a new leak happens, or a whistleblower comes forward, it pulls in a little bit more of the population to pay attention and be like, hey, wait, is this real? This is going on? And start asking questions. But then the folks who aren't buying it, they get their little win, but there's seeds of doubt that are being sowed because they're starting to realize that, wait a minute, maybe the government, parts of the government are lying about this. I feel like it's just too obvious. This was like ChatGPT could have put a better report out. I mean, this is terrible. And they had to know that. So what's the point? Just to keep stringing this along a little bit longer until the next foot is ready to drop? I mean, think about it. What are the next things that we know are coming? Grush has an op-ed that Dopser is holding up. I feel like Dopser is one of the timers that is slowly allowing things to progress as certain, like, maybe checkpoints are reached. All right. When the next hearing can be held, I feel like that's another lever that can be pulled to move things forward. But if you kind of like zoom out at the last 7 years, and look at where we're going. We're marching towards disclosure. I mean, we're in the middle of it right now. More and more people are coming out saying, yep, this is real, this is real, this is real. And the opposition to that, they're not putting up a good fight. It's very surface level, and if you look past the headline, you'll realize that. So I don't think anybody, I mean, people have to think something's odd about this. I'm talking about congressmen. I'm talking about, people that are actively fighting for this. I mean, it just seems very odd they would put out such an obviously crappy report. I don't think anybody is like willingly a part of this plan. I think the gatekeepers or whomever behind the scenes, the man behind the curtain, the Wizard of Oz, is kind of like, I mean, you got to think about, they probably got some crazy, artificial general intelligence that mapped this out over the course of 7 years. Okay, look, we'll hit this beat, then all right, then when enough of the people, all right, look at that. Okay, now we'll do this. We'll have another hearing. All right, let those whistleblowers go through. All right, release that DOPSA report. All right, now we're here. Okay, now, all right, we get the election, so we got to go, all right, look at plan A, B, 12. Okay, we'll do that. It just all feels like if you had the unlimited money and budget that our government, well, our military industrial complex has access to, and of course, the technology that they're probably decades ahead of the rest of the world. They've had a long time to think and plan about this too. If you think about it, if it's all true and this has been an 80-year-long conspiracy, they've had a long time to plan and figure out how this is going to roll out. All right, I'm rambling. I'm gonna end it right there. But I think there's more that meets the eye here. That does it for my first episode. I hope you like the format. I think this is going to be a much easier lift for me. It is not so edit heavy. I love the the deep dives and into stuff, but life gets in the way. I'm busy. Got a career. Got a family. Got hobbies. Got stuff I like to do. I like to see my friends every now and then too. But yeah, I'm gonna keep going with this. I'm gonna see where it goes. Frequency of these videos will depend upon news and what happens. I'm not gonna put up blurry videos of stuff that nobody really cares about. I think we're past that point. It's really when major swings in the news happen, when hopefully some exciting stuff's going to happen soon. I think it is. Well, thanks for joining me. I'll see you on the flip side.